Good morning, everybody. Let's start with a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for waking me up at a good time to start the recording and studying. And thank you very much for everybody who's watching. I pray that this message delivers something substantial for whoever listens, whoever watches, and yeah. Thank you for increasing my faith. Thank you for increasing my energy this morning. Usually when I wake up, I'm dead tired. But thank you for today. I just woke up and I was ready to roll. All right, let's dig in. One thing real quick. Y'all let me know what you think about my background. I've heard that it looked pretty cool, but I was thinking about, I got this tattoo, and I thought, maybe I do something a little like it. Let's see if I can. I feel like you need to be pushed across the other side of the room. Alright, well, Alright. Do you like it? They told me that my hair grows perfect for a flat top, so I said, okay, make it a little gumpy. Alright. So today, call it season 3 or whatever, we're in chapter 3 of John, verse 1. We're only doing 2 verses today. It's only 2. And I'm going to be reading from, I guess I have a choice between LSB and ESV. Let's just stick with the ESV. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. So I'm pretty sure I talked about the Pharisees before and the rulers of the Jews, the Sanhedrin, which is part of the Pharisees. It's like you're a Jewish boy, you grow up, you go to school and all that stuff, and you get taught the scriptures and everything, and you try to memorize it all, and if you can memorize it all, then you get a test at some point and you become a Pharisee or a disciple of a Pharisee at the very least. I think that's probably how that would go. Then, once you graduate to Pharisee, you can keep going, keep growing, keep learning and everything else like that, gain a little bit of recognition and everything, and then you can get into the Sanhedrin, which is like the highest court. The population of the Jews were underneath the Roman Empire regime, but the Roman Empire regime didn't care so much about micromanaging every single little aspect of the people they rule. So they said, all right, you Jews, you guys have your own laws and everything else like that. As long as it doesn't infringe on what we tell you, as long as you pay taxes and do what we say when we say it and all that stuff, go ahead, live your own life, rule yourselves, govern yourselves, that's fine, okay? And so that's who the Sanhedrin are. They're the governing party who rules over the general populace of the Jews. And Nicodemus is one of those members of the Sanhedrin. Now, the Sanhedrin, being the rulers, they kind of get a little obsessed with the politics and everything else, and the power and the respect that they get and the recognition and all that stuff. So they get a little bit of a big head about their position, as many people do. So we start off with this man Nicodemus from the Pharisees. He's a member of the Sanhedrin, And in verse 2 it says, "This man came to Jesus by night and said to him, 'Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from God, for no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him.'" So what have we seen Jesus do so far? We've seen him turn water into wine, and we've seen him get baptized, and we've seen him, you know, John the Baptist, you know, says, you know, this is the guy, this is, you know, and we've also seen him just recently clear the temple, and that shows a lot of authority, and he's, you know, talking to the Pharisees and everybody, you know, and kind of explaining, you know, who he is, what he's doing. I kind of forget. Oh yeah, that's right. He refers to his resurrection, and they didn't quite understand what he was talking about, but that's what he was talking about. So that in and of itself, that's enough for us, you know, and it's enough for a lot of people back then. But think about this. I don't think anybody really knew about the water to wine thing. I'm sure it probably got around and whatever else like that, but it was about the reputation of the bride and groom. So why would Jesus want that like widely known? He wouldn't. He would say, "Hey, keep this under wraps." I mean, you're going to see that throughout this. A lot of the times he's going to say, "Hey, don't tell anybody about this." You know, he's trying to keep it a little low key. So, how is Nicodemus coming to him from this position of high authority, high esteem, you know, and all this stuff, and he probably is pretty prideful. I mean, to be completely honest, the Pharisees have they have a little bit of a reason to be prideful the way that they are, because God is the one that set up at least the framework for their system that they built on, but they're doing God's work. You know, they're governing God's people. So they, you know, they get a little bit of a big head about themselves, and they think they're pretty much fully justified in it. Not that they are, you know, necessarily, but that's kind of what's going on, you know. He's coming from this position, but notice that he's coming at night. I don't really know how their meeting systems and everything worked back then, but if I were an elected official and everything, and I was going to just some random person and saying, you know, I'm gonna have a meeting with you, I wouldn't necessarily go to him first off. I would call him to me, and that's probably what they would have done. Plus, Jesus is lowly, like, not that he just is meek or whatever else like that. It's that his position in society is low. He's on the second class version. So there's like Sanhedrin is the top of the top. Then there's the general Pharisee population, you know, that is still, you know, on top. You know, Sanhedrin is just above, just above. But below the Pharisees is everybody else, and then there's like servants, bond servants, and then there's slaves, and you know, slaves and bond servants is kind of like the same thing. They did, you know, there was, you know, an illegal form of, you know, stealing a person and selling them into slavery and all that kind of thing. There's always been that kind of thing, but in these days and age, a slave was predominantly someone who said, you know, hey, I'm gonna work for you, you know, give me food, you know, kind of deal. Food and lodging and that kind of thing. Getting a little bit lost in what I'm saying. Where was I? Right. Okay. So So we go to, school, we get to the Pharisee test, and we don't pass. Well, what happens? What you would do is you would do your father's trade. You're not going to just go apply to jobs wherever, do whatever you feel like doing. You got to be bringing in income, you got to be doing something, you got to be a part of society. So you just jump straight into doing your father's trade. You've grown up seeing him do it. You know a little bit of the ins and outs already. It's an easy transition. Go straight into there, right? And that's all good and well and everything, but that essentially makes you a second-class citizen in the population of the Jews, at least in the Pharisees' eyes. So Jesus, he's not a Pharisee. He never had that level of formal training. Now, he was intelligent, he was incredibly wise, and Nicodemus is coming to him and saying, Rabbi. He's putting that respect on his name. For a member of the Sanhedrin to go to a carpenter and call him Rabbi when he doesn't have the position officially or the training officially or anything like that, he's acknowledging the intelligence, the wisdom, and all of this knowledge that he has, that Jesus has, based off of what he's seen and heard. And coming at night, he's probably being a little bit sneaky. He probably isn't on official Sanhedrin business. Maybe he is, and they don't want it to be public because they want to keep their clout. They want to keep their authority and everything else like that. They don't want people talking. So he's being sneaky and coming and having this conversation with Jesus under the cover of night. Think about it like that. He says, Rabbi, he's humbling himself in front of Jesus, which is insane. The ego on this man is probably pretty high. I mean, in The Chosen, I think they did a pretty good job of the way that it might have gone, kind of deal, but it makes sense, him being a teacher of teachers, a ruler of the ruling class. He would probably, have a little bit of a pride and arrogance about him, possibly. Or maybe he was somehow able to stay humble throughout all of this, and that's why he's coming to Jesus and talking to him like this, and he's coming to him under the cover of night because he doesn't want to be discovered by the rest of the Sanhedrin. Ruin his reputation, maybe. Who knows? It's kind of hard to say. And when he says, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from God, that the Greek word there that means we know, it's like Edo. I think that's how it's pronounced. It basically means like to know, to see, to perceive, that kind of thing. So it doesn't really say specifically we. It's not saying I, because there is a word for that. So what I'm thinking that's going on there is he's saying, at the very least, he's saying, I can see that you're a teacher come from God, and that's even deeper than just calling him rabbi, because rabbi's a position, right? He's a teacher. But to call him a teacher come from God, that's like calling him a prophet. He's saying, yo, I see you, all right? I see what you're doing. I see, it's blatantly obvious to me to see you have come from God. I perceive you've come from God. If he can see that, I think what he's saying there is it's obvious that you have come from God. For someone who would resist seeing that, that tells me that what he's probably saying there in the greater we is either we, the Sanhedrin, we, just talking about himself, or we, the Pharisees at large, or we, the general population. It's blatantly obvious that you've come from God. And it's very interesting, because why? All he did was storm into the temple grounds, flip some tables, and say it's my father's house, and said, I'm gonna destroy this temple, or you're gonna destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're gonna destroy this and he's like, no, you don't get it. And people don't know about the water to wine thing. A few of them do, but not everybody. It would ruin the reputation of the bride and groom. And they're sitting there like, dude, who is this guy? But a little fun fact is that the very last verse of the book of John says that excuse me, says that if all of the things that Jesus did and said were written down in books, the world itself wouldn't be able to contain the books. And John's a human. He doesn't actually grasp the scope of the size of the world, but that's still a really bold statement to say. So we can extrapolate from that Jesus did and said a lot of things that aren't recorded in the Bible. We don't need to know what he had for lunch every day. We don't need to know the names of every single person he's ever healed, cast a demon out of, or every rock he climbed over. Like we don't need to know that. What we have in the Bible is need to know information, and we need to know that. Yeah, we don't need to know every little thing that he did. But that being said, when Nicodemus says, for no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him, he's talking about those kinds of things that aren't recorded, is what I'm assuming. I mean, he's probably, lumping in the stuff that we know so far already. I'm sure the Sanhedrin had their investigators out there. They might specifically know about the water to wine thing. Who knows? I wasn't there. But yeah, so he's saying it's obvious that you've come from God. Pharisees want to resist anyone infringing on their position and authority. They're obsessed with their image of being holy men, so they wouldn't want to give him this dap up. They wouldn't want to give him this I don't think encouragement would be the right word. I mean, yeah, I guess it would be encouragement, but they wouldn't want to acknowledge that he has this power and authority directly from God the Father, and not have him be part of their group. Because this is their job. This is their job, to be the teachers sent from God. And so whatever he's done so far has really piqued their interest. He's come to him. He approached him. He didn't call him to himself. He went to him under the cover of night. He's asking those questions, making those statements. He's assuming that he's from God, and that shows that they felt that they needed to pay very close to Jesus, because regardless of their heart posture, it's obvious something immense and impactful and even important was happening with and through Jesus. So the guys with the biggest possible egos in this, realm of study, or society, whatever, besides the Romans, the guys with the absolute biggest egos, the guys who believe that everything they do is basically an edict from God. They took it upon themselves to add, what was it, like 300 or something like that, laws on top of the laws that were actually given by God to Moses, the 10 Commandments and that kind of thing. They added laws to pad around those laws so that there wasn't even a chance of accidentally breaking one of those original laws. And they think that they have that kind of authority. So, and to enforce it in a manner speaking. Huge egos, and they're saying, we need to pay attention to this guy. He's from God. Pretty sure. It's pretty obvious. But let's see. Now, this whole, it's obvious that you're from God because of the signs that you do. The Bible does talk a couple of times about false prophets and them being able to do signs and wonders. It's like that thing with magic and demons, demonic blessings. You know, you can be on the wrong path and still succeed. You can earn money by deception and immoral actions and duplicitous business and stealing and all this kind of stuff, but no one would say that that's objectively good. And the people who would say that that's objectively good are just, you know, Machiavellian, selfish type people. You know, they're in it for themselves, and that's the way of the world. So that must be good. Nope, nope. There is moral truth. There is moral law. There is right, and there is wrong, and that is wrong. So, you know, I lost what I was saying. Um, Man, what was I saying? I get lost in what I'm saying sometimes. So, so I doubt you have as big of an ego as the Pharisees here. I mean, again, they literally think they're doing God's work. They think they're helping God out. You know, they believe everything they do is essentially God ordained. They sit around like they can do no wrong. I doubt any one of you feel like that. And if you do, maybe work on that. Maybe ask God to help you out with that. So, my question to you is, are you paying attention to Jesus? And if so, what about Jesus or about his ministry piques your interest or jumps out to you? Anything that catches your eye, you know, put that in the comments, and get a little discussion going. Because I realize that I'm just sitting here talking to you guys, but I'm doing this Bible study for myself as much as for you, and I'm getting things out of it. And I try to have not a conversation. I try to have a question at the very end that that'll get you to kind of like think about these things and weigh the scriptures a little bit. But I think it would be even better if we have a little bit of a conversation. What's that? Discourse in the... I don't know if that's the right word. But yeah, this is supposed to be a Bible study, and it's hard to do a Bible study with one person. Without, so let's talk. Put in the comments what's something about Jesus that you've always wondered about, or what's something that sticks out to you or catches your eye, or why did this happen in his ministry and this didn't? Why is this recorded and this isn't? Whatever you got. Let's build a community here. It's not just me talking into the ether. Let's dig in. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and have a good Sunday.